This is the Jeff McLeod Show, where we talk about God, America, the things that make our country great, and so much more. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the Jeff McLeod Show. I hope you've had a great Thursday so far. Today, we're going to be discussing a couple different events from yesterday, most notably the ICE attack in Texas. So let's begin. Today, we had another incident of Democrats trying to incite violence. For the last year or so, ever since Donald Trump has taken office, Democrats have consistently attacked ICE. And like I mentioned with the Charlie Kirk shooting, I don't believe most of these Democrats would want ICE agents killed. However, when you call a group or an organization Nazis or fascist, or you tell people to resist or riot in the streets, or you make laws or bills like Gavin Newsom did this week, sign them into law about ICE agents not being able to wear masks, you make people scared, and you make deranged people want to attack ICE agents. So that happened again today, sadly, and the shooter ended up shooting 3 illegal immigrants instead of the ICE agents. So he was aiming for the ICE agents, and he killed 1 illegal immigrant, and then he injured 2 of the other detainees, and right now they're in critical condition. It is completely unacceptable to keep on demonizing the right. People on the left have been doing that for a long time. Let me just show you quotes as proof to why they're causing this to happen. Jay Inslee from Washington said, "Our officers are here to keep the public safe by enforcing the criminal laws, not to act as ICE officers or enforce civil violations." So he's basically underlining or undermining ICE agents. He's basically saying that they don't have any jurisdiction or power to do anything. That's up to the local law enforcement. Clearly, ICE is there for a reason. ICE is there because we've had millions of people over the last 5 years cross the southern border, and many of them need to be returned. So they're ultimately doing their job. Donald Trump and the federal department leads ICE, and they're responsible for ICE. Therefore, it's up to the local congressmen and the local state representatives to make sure that they're following law as well. Maura Healey from Massachusetts said, "The White House is giving marching orders to ICE to create a little political theater. They're doing this to intimidate and create fear." I'd have you to know that our nations have laws. Nations have sovereign boundaries. If right now I tried to cross into China illegally, I would be detained. If I tried crossing into much of Eastern culture, if I tried crossing into Russia, I'd be detained. If I tried crossing into any country, pretty much, you're going to be detained because you are breaking their law by crossing their border. For some reason, Western countries in the last 25 years have gotten the bright idea to decide, oh, we're all the same people. It's one world, so let's just let everybody in. We're not going to build walls. We're not going to have boundaries. We're not going to prosecute people for coming in here illegally. Just do whatever you want. And that's caused the massive problems we've had. Europe right now is overrun by Middle Easterners who don't want to follow European customs or their laws. Many of them came over from the Syrian civil war, and the Western democracies thought, like France, England, and Germany, they thought, oh, these people are just going to want to integrate into our society. It didn't end up happening. Those individuals, those Muslims from the Middle East, they want their culture, and they're not going to be subservient to Western culture. In fact, they are going to make Western culture be subservient to their culture, and that's the problem. I don't have a problem with people wanting to immigrate and integrate and become part of a culture. But the problem many of our Western civilization and Western countries are facing is people from other parts of the world, they don't want our culture. And when they come in, they try keeping every aspect of their culture intact. For instance, much of England, France, and Germany have prayer calls, Muslim prayer calls. Some towns have Sharia law. Dearborn, Michigan is like that in the United States. And that's completely unacceptable. Those individuals need to integrate. And I don't think we're facing nearly the same problem as Europe is here in the United States. I believe most of your Hispanic Americans, they just want a better life. There's a few exceptions, right? There's some people that are coming over here to sell drugs, and there are some people that are coming over here nefariously because they want to be on welfare. But I think most are fleeing persecution, and they just want a better life. But just because individuals want a better life doesn't mean that we have the responsibility to let them come here illegally. Listen, there are probably a number of people that want Bill Gates's house, but it doesn't make it right if I want Bill Gates's house because I don't have $1 billion and I'm less privileged than he is to go into his house and start mooching off of him and taking his stuff. That's not okay, right? And I know it might not be a completely equivalent comparison, but it's a pretty good analogy. So we have to make sure that we have laws. We have to make sure that our laws are enforced. And it doesn't remove the sympathy from my heart to these people who are seeking asylum or who want a better life. I think actually, as conservatives, we need to allow more people to come here legally. I don't believe there should be some expensive or hefty price that individuals have to pay to come in. I believe they should be coming over here legally. And if individuals need asylum because their countries will not allow them to come back, then we should try granting those people asylum if we can. But we are a sovereign nation. We have laws. Our people come first. That's what the left hates about MAGA. What MAGA and the people that are on that side, and I don't subscribe to everything that Donald Trump says, but I believe much of what he's doing is right. We believe that our country comes first before people from other countries. It's because I'm a citizen of the United States, I should enjoy the rights and privileges of being an American citizen more than an individual that is coming here illegally, right? I should be getting good health care, not having to wait weeks. Illegal immigrants, they're part of the healthcare system here in New Jersey. It's state by state. And as a result, me, Jeff McLeod, the American citizen, has to wait weeks because there are illegal immigrants further down the line than me. It means I have to pay more taxes to be able to house many of these illegal immigrants. So we have to, as a country, have to get back to the idea that Americans matter first. And after we take care of our own people, then we can start worrying about people from other countries. And I'm all for humanitarian aid. The United States has been the most gracious country in world history. We rebuilt Europe and they didn't have to pay us back after World War I. After World War II, we also rebuilt Europe and we helped rebuild Japan. We helped rebuild the Philippines. And we are legitimately the most charitable nation in the world. But we have to get back to the idea that we have people struggling. We have people homeless on our street. There's a drug epidemic in the United States, and I'm glad for what the Trump administration right now is doing and trying to curb the drugs coming over from Venezuela. So, but going back to our original topic, what's happening is all these Democratic leaders are demonizing ICE. And when you demonize ICE and you make people scared of ICE, like they're going to come in and they're going to beat you up, they're going to raid your home and they're going to deport you like a Nazi would, what they're doing is they're creating people to hate ICE and want to commit acts of violence against them. So we have to make sure that we tone down the political rhetoric. And that means as somebody that's conservative, we need to tone down a little bit on our side and make sure we de-escalate. And people on the left need to stop calling us fascist and Nazis because this is what happens. You're seeing the result. Charlie Kirk, a father, is dead because of that. Because one deranged individual thought that Charlie Kirk was a fascist and he was evil and he was anti-transgender and he wanted to take away all these different human rights, and now he's dead. Now we have several different illegal immigrants that people, quote unquote, the left wants to save. One of them is dead and two of them are in critical condition from this shooter who thought that he was doing some sort of justice in trying to kill ICE agents. It's completely unacceptable where we've gotten to in our country, and the left has to learn, stop motivating violence, stop speaking acts of violence. And there's other people as well. There's governors, one of them is my own governor, who have talked about this and are not allowing ICE to do their job, and they're demonizing ICE, and as a result, people are getting hurt. And people are getting hurt in a conservative state like Texas because people buy the lies from the left. We need law and order. And I want to point one more thing out about the left and about their view on illegal immigration. So don't think that the left, if you're somebody that is for illegal immigration, don't think that the left is content with just the number of illegal immigrants they have in our country now. This is all a master plan. They're trying to get as many people that are illegal over here, grant them citizenship so they can vote in elections and be bought by the Democratic side. Secondly, we have a major problem in the West, and Europe has the same problem. There's a decline in birth rates. Caucasians in the United States have 1.7 children per couple. That's below what you need to survive as a culture, which is 2. And when you include illegal immigrants, it's 2.3. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to have people with more who have more children and come into the United States so they can vote on the Democratic cause. Because if you think about it, your typical Caucasian Democrat, they're not going to have many children. They're going to be all about career. Secondly, they are also they're all for homosexuality and transgenderism, and those individuals don't procreate. So what they're doing is they're creating this massive system where all of a sudden they're going to have no people in 30 years and they're going to lose power. So they have to compensate somewhere, and they're doing that by trying to buy people. And on top of that, here's your fourth biggest problem with illegal immigration. There's a serious moral dilemma. The left can say all the time, oh, we're the party of rights. We want equal rights for women. We want equal rights for minorities. They're all racist. When in reality, when you allow illegal immigrants into our country, what you're doing is you're creating a modern day slave class. And you could take this out of context all you want, but it is absolutely true. People that come here illegally, they don't receive the same wages as Americans do. And do I think that's wrong? Absolutely. It's exploitation. But the exploitation happens when you have people coming into our country that are here illegally and they're not registered. So employers can pay them under the table. So what they're doing is they're creating a modern day slave class, and that is completely unacceptable. Fourth, another problem with illegal immigration is the sex trafficking. So you can act like, oh, we're the good guys all you want. We care about other people and other cultures. We want people coming into our country, and we love everyone from every culture. It's much more nefarious than that. To be able to get over here, there's sex trafficking. Many people die on their way up here. I have a friend, and I'm not going to mention his name, but he lives in a Central American country, and he said that there's rumors from people in those countries that there are bones, human bones in there from animals that have killed individuals and from just the rugged terrain and the rainforest that people have to trudge through to get all the way to the U.S. border, normally by cartel members. It's completely unacceptable. So those are 4 big reasons. And if that's not enough for you, I don't know what else is. That illegal immigration needs to stop, and we need to let ICE do their job. And we can say all we want, oh, children are going to be separated from their parents. And crossing the border illegally, it's a crime. And if children get separated from their parents, it's the parents' fault, right? In the United States, if I get arrested and I have children, it's my fault. My children are going to be without a father. It's not their fault, but it's my fault. And the same thing is true. So when they're returning people, and by and large, the Trump administration has returned individuals back to their country of origin, and it's not just been the mother or father, it's been the families. So they're actually doing something that's more moral than separating them all and like just deporting the mother and father and leaving the children here. And that's also why I believe we need to remove birthright citizenship. Birthright citizenship is only exists in 4 countries in the world right now. And the United States is by a mile the largest country that promotes birthright citizenship. So all these liberal governors, where I'm going to read quotes where they're attacking ICE, they know that if they can get these illegal immigrants to bear children, all of a sudden those children become American citizens and they buy them for life, essentially. So we have to make sure that we understand that they're not being honest. I'm all for sympathy. Like I said, I'd increase the number of legal immigrants into our country. I decrease the price of lawyer costs. There's things I would do to offset it. But without a country's borders, it has no sovereignty. And Europe has already lost its sovereignty in many countries, and we can't afford to do the same thing. So let's read a few other incendiary quotes. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, okay, our next 2028 Democratic candidate for president. Can you believe that? This whack job, someone who was a bartender, is going to be the Democratic candidate potentially for president. It drives me crazy. I don't even know how that's possible. She said, I believe that ICE, an agency that was just formed in 2003 during the Patriot Act era, is a rogue agency that should not exist. On Twitter and social media, she has also tied abolish ICE to stopping an agency that incarcerates children and abuses, writing, abolish ICE means not having an agency that incarcerates children and sexually assaults women with impunity. Absolutely no evidence that ICE sexually assaults women and that it also exploits children. In fact, ICE prevents the exploitation of children by being a deterrent for people trying to cross the border. So you're trying to advocate for these individuals when in fact many of them came to America and experienced many of the same things. Like many of them were sexually assaulted, and they were sexually assaulted because of your weak border policy and allowing them to be able to come up here. So it's not ICE that is committing these acts. It's actually your act of not closing the borders down and giving these people the hope that they're going to get into the United States and they're going to allow cartel leaders and gangbangers to lead them here. It's completely unacceptable. So an AOC needs to clean up the act in New York. New York is a disgrace right now with all the homeless people in New York. Clearly her policies aren't working. So if you live in New York and she is your representative, you need to vote her out and you need to educate yourself that everything isn't about handouts and that ICE is not your enemy. ICE is actually your friend. And that we need to be a country that has borders and we have our own sovereignty. It used to be for years that countries would build walls to keep intruders out. And now what we're doing is we're just allowing as many people in as possible. And many of them are good people, but there's an integration problem. When somebody comes here illegally, there's also an additional problem that they think things that they don't feel like they have to incorporate into a society. They don't have to become part of the society because they're not a citizen. So it also encourages people that are from Central America who aren't here legally to not adjust and learn English. It's big to have a common language. I'm not against people that are bilingual. I actually think it's awesome. I hope my children one day are able to speak 2 languages. That would be awesome. But I think it's necessary. I don't just think for society to have a common language. Look at the Roman Empire. They could all speak the common language. Look even at Europe today. Most of them can speak English, even though they're not even going to the United States. Look at the Greek Empire. They could all speak Greek. And the Persian Empire and the Babylonian Empire and all the different empires of years past. There was a common language because that links people together. So that's another problem with illegal immigration. And illegal immigration needs to be enforced by ICE. So there is a point to be made. She said that she doesn't believe it needs to be existed. It was created during the Patriot Act era. Okay, then before that, it would have been the feds. So the feds will come in and do the job. So either way, this has to be enforced somehow. These people don't give logical explanations as to how they are going to fix this problem because they don't really want it to be fixed. They want it to perpetuate. So let's continue looking. Representative Pramila Jayapal said, ICE is acting like a terrorist force. Here's another one, a terrorist force. You got to be kidding me. When you call something a terrorist force, what you're doing is you're inciting deranged individuals to attack ICE agents. These are citizens of our country. These are people just like law enforcement and police officers and the military. They're trying to do their job and they're doing the best they can. So what you're doing is you're encouraging people not to act out against the policymakers that are enforcing ICE, but the actual ICE agents themselves, which is wrong. People across the country of all legal statuses, including U.S. citizens, are being kidnapped and disappeared off the street by masked men. Okay, Pramila Jayapal. Yet Donald Trump is offering troops to come into cities to clean up these liberal, absolute, trash heaps, and you're denying it. So the only masked men that are causing problems are the people that you are not allowing the federal government to get rid of. Right. So you could fix this if you just let the feds come in. And instead, you're demonizing ICE. And you're saying people all across, from all legal statuses, are being kidnapped because of ICE, people that are legal. That's absolutely false. The man who was recently, there's a big fuss about him being deported because he was an MS-13 member and you didn't believe he was. Um, it's just bogus. He wasn't even a citizen of the United States. So only citizens receive the privileges of our Constitution. Non-citizens do not, especially illegal immigrants, right? People with green cards, it's more debatable in my book. But people that are not here legally, they don't get the same rights and privileges that we as American citizens have. So Gavin Newsom, and he's been one of the worst about this, in remarks defending California's legislation to prohibit mass federal law enforcement, he said, unmarked cars, people en masse, people quite literally disappearing, no due process, no oversight, and zero accountability. These are not just authoritarian tendencies, these are authoritarian actions. Committed, they're not American citizens that these people are coming for, so therefore it is not. And believe me, I love Hispanics. I think many of them are awesome. I've worked with many, and I have no hate in my heart toward any of them, but they need to be here legally. And if some of them struggle with asylum, and if they're struggling because they can't go back to their country of origin, the U.S. has special asylum status, and they should seek that and get it renewed. I know people that are on asylum status. So that's completely unfounded and just not true. I'd love to have a talk about Gavin Newsom about this. Like, why are you hurting your state and allowing more privileges to the people who aren't citizens than your own people in your state who you're sworn to protect? So, and ultimately, the reason ICE comes in with masks is because of events like today. They know they're under a serious threat, and because they're under a serious threat, they don't want people to know their identities, and that's important. So Gavin Newsom, another problem. So J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, he said, I will stand in the way of Tom Homan, okay, he's the Department of Homeland Security, going after people who don't deserve to be frightened in their communities, who don't deserve to be threatened or terrorized. I would rather he come and arrest me than do that to the people of my state. Okay, so these people care more, and Donald Trump has already said, we'll clean up Chicago and we'll give you federal troops if you accept them, but he didn't. So they don't want help, and they want these problems to perpetuate. They would rather have murder persist in their cities than to receive help from either ICE or for the federal government to send troops in. So these people don't want a solution to their crime-riddled cities. Kathy Hochul from New York, or Hochul, however you say her name. Today's raids will not make New York safer. We will never stand for masked ICE agents separating families and abandoning children. Okay, I've already talked about this. If you go to prison, the same thing happens, and the whole abandoning children thing happens extremely rarely. So it's all a political ploy, and it's a ploy from the left to buy votes long term, because they know this isn't a short-term issue. This is one that they have to wait a long term out, and they need to get the U.S. people more accustomed to accepting illegal immigrants and to not wanting walls or borders. And I feel like with the left, they've somewhat already achieved that. My governor, Phil Murphy, my favorite guy, the guy who kept me out of church for a couple weeks during COVID, the guy who kept the liquor stores open. Yeah, this guy that thankfully we're going to be losing as governor in a few short months, but hopefully we have Jack Ciattarelli as our governor and not Mikey Sherrill, because that might be even worse. Here's what Phil Murphy said. Let's be clear. The Trump administration's fear-mongering is an un-American and dangerous. It's not fear-mongering. The Trump administration wants to correct issues that we have right now in our country. And Donald Trump, by the way, overwhelmingly was elected even by Hispanics in southern Texas. Many Hispanics support President Trump. Hispanics don't want lawlessness. They don't want massive disorder. And they want the integrity of our borders. They want to be safe. And when you allow a massive amount of people and you don't know where they're coming from, you don't know whether someone's a gang member, and I'm going to be clear, and I'll say I don't believe most are, but you don't know. You simply don't know. You don't know if someone came across the border from the Middle East. And what you're doing is you are keeping the country safer by keeping out invaders, people from another country. These raids do not make us safer and increase fears in our hardworking immigrant community. They don't make us safer. Really? What is your evidence to cite that they don't make us safer? I know it's different. It's the feds, but look at Washington, D.C. and just having the feds come in. The crime in Washington, D.C. decreased by 40%. So clearly, ICE agents, and by the way, they're not targeting every illegal immigrant. They're targeting mainly criminals. Okay, there have been some exceptions, but they're targeting mainly criminals and people that are on welfare. Those people don't help our state. In fact, those people make our state more dangerous. So therefore, they should be removed. We shouldn't be having to pay taxpayer money for some of these slime bags to be going to jail, these criminal illegal immigrants. We shouldn't have to be paying taxpayer money for them. They need to be deported if they are a criminal. If there's someone on welfare, they need to be deported. I would say if somebody is paying their taxes and working hard, then there's a conversation to be had. But not about what the Trump administration is trying to remove. Jay Inslee from Washington said, our officers are here to keep the public safe by enforcing the criminal laws, not to act as ICE officers or enforce civil violations. Enforce civil violations? Isn't that the responsibility of law enforcement and ICE? If I don't know, if I drive over the speed limit, I'm going to get a traffic citation, right? Which is of a type of violation. And I deserve it because I went over the speed limit. These illegal immigrants deserve violations, right? They deserve to be given civil violations. Marl Healy from Massachusetts said, the marching orders to ICE to create a little political theater. They're doing this to intimidate us and create fear. This isn't some show. This wasn't a show to get elected. We had millions and millions and millions and millions, up to 15 million people from some estimates come into our country illegally during the Biden administration. It has to be resolved. It has to be resolved for Americans who don't have jobs. It has to be resolved because we need to be a nation of borders and integrity and a nation of law and order. And if you're not able to maintain the law and order, you don't have a sovereign nation anymore. So let's read a few statements from people who denounced this, right? So John Cornyn, who was the senator, I believe, from Texas, stated, today's shooting at Dallas ICE field office is one in a series of attacks at ICE Gov and Border Patrol facilities in Texas. There should be no doubt that recent anti-law enforcement rhetoric from the radical left has contributed to this uptick in violence. Absolutely. Here's another one. Tom Homan said, our words have consequences, our actions have consequences, and we're reaping right now the power of words, right? Sticks and stones may break your bones, but words may never hurt me. These words are hurting, and they're hurting bad. So next, let's take a look. Kristi Noem said, for months we've been warning politicians and the media to tone down their rhetoric about ICE law enforcement before someone was killed. This shooting must serve as a wake-up call to the far left and their rhetoric about ICE has consequences. Comparing ICE day in and day out to the Nazi Gestapo and secret police and slave patrol has consequences. Absolutely. And I don't want to hear it's slave patrol from the left. They're creating the slave class. And when I'm saying this, I want to clarify myself because I don't want to be taken out of context like all these Charlie Kirk clips. I don't believe any of these people are less intelligent than I am or have less ability. It's just this, the truth of the matter is if you come here illegally, you don't have papers, you're going to get a lower level end job. And many times you're going to be paid under the table. So the left is the slave patrol, not the right. Furthermore, we see, I'm going to look a little bit more at this shooter himself and his brother. So the shooter was a registered independent, and his last name was John, interestingly, because we're near Philly, but his last name was John, and Jahn, to be clear, and he was responsible for the shooting today. It ended up leaving two immigrants, two detainees, seriously injured and one dead. So he was trying to shoot at the ICE agents, but he ended up killing three different illegal immigrants, or one illegal immigrant and injuring critically two other illegal immigrants. He was from Oklahoma recently. That's where he had been living. And like I said already, he was a registered independent. The last time he voted was in 2024. So it's hard to say. Obviously, he didn't like ICE, but it's hard to say where he voted on issues in the past. He's been arrested twice for drugs, namely marijuana. So he was never a violent offender. And his brother said today that he had no inclination. He never really talked about politics. He never knew that he was anti-ICE. And he also said that he was not very accurate with his gun skills. And we saw that because he didn't hit the ICE agents. He ended up killing an illegal immigrant. So I think there is something to be said that maybe it goes beyond just this young guy who shot and killed, shot a few different illegal immigrants and killed one. I think maybe there could be something bigger than this. Just the fact that he's independent. He didn't make many political posts on Facebook. He was either really smart or it's odd seeming. So I'm sure they'll uncover more in the days ahead. He fired from a rooftop down at the detainees being shepherded from a bus into an ICE facility in Dallas. And then he shot himself. So we can't even question him as for what his motive was. If he was instigated by anybody, that's never going to happen. A car connected to John was found with a map referencing a radioactive fallout. That's strange. I don't know what that would have to do with ICE, but who knows? And the FBI is investigating this incident as a targeted act of violence. So once again, I want to say we need to speak out for those who don't have a voice right now. And I feel like in our country, people who don't have a voice, these ICE agents, really it's the government over top of them that is leading them and telling them what to do. And they're really going into some dangerous neighborhoods, just like police officers would, and they're doing their job. So today, make sure that you de-escalate the situation with politics. Be willing to have civil conversations and hard conversations. I said some things tonight this afternoon that might be a little controversial, but I believe they're true. And we have the freedom of speech in America to say what we believe is true. And we need to fight against this. This is injustice on the side of the left. And we need to make sure that as an American and as a Christian, I'm for freedom. I'm for the freedom to work whatever job you want, and these illegal immigrants are restricted in that because they don't have papers. I believe in national boundaries and sovereignty, the sovereignty of a nation. Without boundaries, you are no longer a sovereign nation. And I believe that in integration, we should love immigrants, and I love immigrants, and I believe that there are a lot that are trying to do good, but they need to come here the right way. So this needs to be a talking point. And there should be some sort of compromise. This is something that the left and right should be able to talk about and have some sort of compromise.